All right, we're back. Tradon. We're talking hockey. As we just mentioned, Eric screamed. Some stuff happened. Why don't you talk about that game, and we'll talk about now one team moving on.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with the series that, I thought was going to end tonight. Did not. The Tampa Bay New York Islanders series. Tampa Bay now leads 3-2 with the win by the Islanders, forcing Game 6. We got a beautiful overtime goal from Jordan Eberle after an interesting game where you saw a lot of shots, great goaltending. A nice 1-1 game. The Bolts did score a second goal, but they were clearly offside. That was a good challenge. That was really far offside. But we got goals from Victor Hedman, which is the third of the series. Victor Hedman might as well just be considered the greatest defenseman in our game right now. He is just unbelievable. But hey, I mean, got to hand it to the Islanders. They came back. I guess my first question to everybody right now, as it stands, I'm gonna go around. Do you see the Islanders winning 2 games in a row still, Tyler?
I mean, yeah, they can. I think hockey, you see it. I think you see it pretty consistently every year. There's teams that come back from 3-1, even 3-0 deficits from time to time. Mm-hmm. This Islanders team, as we mentioned several times, is a stingy team. And if there's, I can fully see this series going 7, and then anything can happen in a Game 7. I still think the Lightning will pull it off in one of these next 2 games, but I'm a little nervous for the Lightning right now after that game.
What about you, Eric?
I agree with Tyler. Is that the Lightning's first OT loss in the bubble?
I believe so.
Yeah, so things are changing. I think that the Islanders, of course, in this fashion, winning it that way, now have a ton of momentum going into that Game 6, and I think they could push it to Game 7.
So you believe in momentum from game to game? Some people do, some people don't. I
believe in just that the team that hasn't lost in overtime once yet in the bubble just did. Now it may be in the back of their heads. Who knows? Islanders aren't gonna let up.
Alex, what about you, man?
No. I'm calling it right now. Tampa will win the next game, and this will be over.
All right. I'm more on that camp. What about you, James?
Yeah, I agree with you and Alex here. I think Tampa Bay is just too good. I think they take this as motivation. I think they're taking it as disrespect to them, the fact that they lost, because they fucked up. They're a better team than that, and they just didn't perform up to their standards, and that's where they lost. And so I think they're going to take that to heart and just use that as motivation to absolutely pummel the Islanders next game.
Yeah. I still find it interesting. I mean, this is going to be kind of a tale of two series that kind of are the same type of feel. Lightning, in most of that game, I watched most of it. They poured it on. I mean, they were owning the puck, owning the zone. They had way more shots. Very similar to what we see on the other side. But that team that didn't have the shots won the series. So I guess anything's possible. But in my opinion, just the way that the Bolts have, so their forwards are just killer. Their top forwards are just killer. So let me give you some notable stats. The Bolts shots throughout for that now 5 games, the Bolts are beating the Isles in shots 165-138 and goals 18-11. The Bolts have a much better shooting percentage and have a much better plus minus between their players. Vasilevsky is putting up a solid performance, not .93 save percentage, 8 goals against. Well, I guess now 10 goals against. And he has 2 penalty minutes. I haven't looked it up, but I want to know what the hell he got a penalty for. Varlamov and Greiss together have a .8. This is before today's game, mind you. Have a .874 save percentage. Greiss was lit up, letting in 3 on 9 shots for a .667. So he had a pretty rough relief in that 8-goal game. Pretty tough. Here's my thing, boys. I mean, Jordan Eberle scored. We got to give him credit for that, but the top 6 matchup has just been massively outlauded. I mean, prior to this game anyway. Barzal, Anders Lee, Jordan Eberle had just combined for just 1 goal and 6 points. I think Anders Lee got an assist and Jordan Eberle got his goal, so I think they have now 8. But still now and still that's only 3 points in 4 games. between the three of them. While you have Point, Palat, and Kucherov. Now I get that Braden Point was out 2 games and he was out tonight, but they have out-attempted 28-18, outshot 20-8, outchanced 17-11. I could go on, and they just have completely dominated. The Bolts finished there. Interestingly, that game 3, where the Bolts actually lost that game, they amassed 62 hits, which was a club high for the group, which I think is interesting because I don't think we really expect the Tampa Bay Lightning to be a hitting team, but clearly they have that in them. So I think that that's an element that they can turn on and be that they probably was probably the reason they lost last year against the Blue Jackets. I won't get into the talks about, well, I guess we can, because I think we all expect the Islanders to be out. I just want to kind of go through some questions about the Islanders offseason. The Islanders will have $8.9 million of cap space available, but don't have a first or second round draft pick this year. They have older UFAs rolling off. Matthew Barzal's contract is up as a RFA. They have a couple other RFA signings that they need to get. But this question is going to be for Eric and James. Do you think the Islanders have a bright future? Should the Metro Division guys, feel these guys as a threat for the next few years? I mean, what do you guys like most about those teams, respectively, James?
I think for their style of play, they do. Typically, a lot of hockey teams try to get that big name, the guy who scores so many goals, super prolific, and all that. But for the Islanders, their style of play is dirty. I mean, not dirty, but it's hard nosed. They put the pedal to the metal. They grind it out, and they don't need a big name to win games. As you can see right now, their top scorers have 4 points in this game, in the series as a whole. And then on the flip side, Kucherov has 9 points in the series.
Yeah.
That's not the way they play. As long as that coach is still going to be the coach, they don't need a big name. And so I think their future will be bright based off of the style that they play right now.
Eric?
Yeah, totally agree. They did have a big name. His name was John Tavares. And look where he went, to a team that has done jack fucking shit. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a fucking joke. The Islanders, he didn't want to stay there. I get it. But then they bring in Barry Trotz, who just created a team full of grinders. And Barzal, you don't think they're going to re-sign him? They're going to re-sign him for sure. He's the guy that gives that offensive spark to them, power play, everything. They're a team that we bring up every time. They're like that Western Kings style of hockey in the East right now. And it's frustrating to play against. I think they stick around for a few years and be a threat. Now people just are going to know about them a little more. That's the one thing.
I wonder now what the team would be like with John Tavares and the same team playing that same style of hockey. If A, he'd fit in, and if B, if he did, obviously they'd have a goal scorer, and I think they'd be even more of a threat than they already are. Tyler and Alex, speaking of Matthew Barzal, we're going to talk about him right now. So Tyler, Lou Lamoriello is the GM of the Islanders. He just won GM of the Year. It's considered one of the best yet most frugal GMs in the NHL. He does not sign players to contracts unless they've really done something. So in your opinion, how important will this contract signing of Barzal be? I mean, he's reached 2 back-to-back 60-point seasons after a solid 85-point season in 2017-2018 where he won the Calder Trophy. And though John Tavares was on the team then. How important is this guy to tie up long-term? Do you think he is the face of the team, or do you see someone else as the most important player for this team?
Lock him up. Give him the money he wants. Give him the money he deserves. I think you got to have an anchor, a face of your franchise, no matter what team you are. If you want to be successful, I think you just got to have that star guy that's locked up long term. And for me, it's for the Islanders, it's Barzal.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I look at Mark Scheifele's contract, similar numbers, similar style of play. I think that they are very close. He's getting $6.125 million per year for 8 years. He's in 4 years into that, and I think that it is going to be close. And so, Alex, you are Matthew Barzal, Calder Trophy winner of 2018. Do you take one of the two deals? Do you take a 4-year deal at $6 million a year, knowing that you'll be entering your prime, your UFA eligibility, where you can ink a massive deal if you perform very well? but you risk failing to perform, getting hurt, and you may not get something big? Or do you ink that $8 million deal at 6.125 that walks you past your prime years, but you're inked for $49 million guaranteed dollars?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'd go for the short one, especially with hockey. Injuries are a huge part of the game. He's been the star of the team for these playoff series, and you know what? Like, you can't. Yeah, I take the 4 years because I want to play for Barry Trotz. That's what it comes down to. And if he decides that like Barry Trotz doesn't want to stay around, I don't believe his contract is for a super long period. You play for Barry Trotz because obviously he got you to the Eastern Conference Finals this year when no one expected you to do that. He's one of the best coaches in the league right now. You take the money and you bet on yourself. That's what I would do.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think that players, when they take a little bit less money, I think that he'd actually be leaving some money on the table for them to sign maybe someone else who can actually score. They might actually have a good chance at making another Eastern Conference final for sure. It's just an interesting dynamic there. So, but hey, that's my series on the Islanders. We still have maybe two more games. But I think this group kind of thinks that Tampa Bay is gonna finish it out in the next two. Going on to the other side, Eric, you won some money, baby. Dallas Stars beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1 in this series. First of all, I want to ask, how much money did you win, or did you just not lose $100?
I actually just didn't lose $200. I broke even.
There you go.
Oh.
Well, I'm glad that happened. And James, I got to give you a shout out. You were bullish on this team from the get-go. So, I mean, how do you feel?
Fantastic, man. To be honest, I didn't know much about the Stars, but then you assigned me the Stars to cover from round one, and then I became a fan since then. And so I've just been like pushing the Stars to win, and it's kind of working here.
Hey, let's dig into it a little. Leonard and Fleury. First of all, the shots were insane. Vegas shot 166 versus the Stars 118. The Golden Knights only put in I don't even know how many goals. It was putrid compared to their shots. Fleury and Leonard together had a .925 save percentage, .96 for Fleury, .914 for Leonard. One shutout, 9 goals against for a 1.8 goals against average, which is really good. That is solid numbers, guys. Anton Davi Kudobin, 0.95% save percentage, 1 shutout, 8 goals against. So there you go. They scored 8 goals versus the 9 that were put up as Stars for a 1.6 goals against average. Yes, Jake Oettinger, or however you say it, did play 17 minutes and faced 5 shots, but who really cares? To me, this series was all about goaltending, in a good way and bad way. There was some drama between Fleury and the whole thing with his agent. And Pete DeBoer, as a new coach, didn't give 2 shits who he was playing. He was going to play the hot hand over the loyalty, even though that Fleury is was the face of that organization. Flower has 2 more years left on his deal at $7 million per year. Has a modified no trade clause, so he submits a 10 no-fly zone list of teams that he can't go to. And Leonard is at 29 years old, is a current free agent coming off a $5 million 1-year deal. He signed 3 back-to-back 1-year deals, so he hasn't seen a long-term contract since his entry level. So Eric and James, this question is for you guys. If you guys were Kelly McCrimmon, who's the GM, knowing what you know about Flower's drama, his impact as the face of the Golden Knights, and given the fact that Leonard has had a great season and deservingly stole the net from Marc-Andre Fleury, who would you go with next year? Do you trade Flower, enter him into the trade market, and offload the dollars to sign Leonard long term, or do you see a chance that Leonard would take less than Flower? Do you see any chance that Leonard would take less than Flower, allowing the team to bring back both, or do you stick with Flower and let Leonard test free agency? Eric,
You keep Marc-Andre Fleury. The guy got him to the Stanley Cup in their first season ever. The guy's won 2 or 3 Stanley Cups with the Penguins already. 2. He's been called upon before for the big moments, and he shines in them. Yeah, he had his whole drama with his agent. Throw that shit aside and keep him. Leonard is good, and I like the guy. He's got a good story and an upbringing and everything. But, Leonard has been getting shopped around the NHL most of his career, I keep Fleury.
James?
I disagree with you 100% there. I think the younger goaltender, mainly because they're trying to start a dynasty, aren't you? This is like what Alex was saying. He bet on himself. He had a couple one-year deals back to back to back, and now it's time for him to cash in. He performed really well during this entire playoffs. He got traded from an team to a great team, and he did well. He bet on himself. It paid off. Give him the money he deserves. Give him a ton of years too. Like he could be a goaltender there for a long time because he's only 29 years old.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury is like, 75? I don't know. He's old. But he's going to be done soon, man. You can't give that guy that much money right now. I don't know Leonard's character at all. Like, I don't know if he'd be willing to take a pay cut to keep both. But in a perfect world, that's what would happen. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's 2020, and this world kind of sucks right now. So Marc-Andre Fleury has been fantastic for the Knights, but if I was a GM, I'd trade him away. And it's with a heavy heart. I have a ton of respect for that guy, for that franchise, but I look towards the future.
No, I get it. I actually agree with you on that one. Leonard was played fantastic, and knowing the goalie market this year, there's no way in hell he's taking a pay cut. He can go literally anywhere and cash in. Alex and Tyler, before we move on to the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights had very little problems defending goals. I would say giving up nine goals in 5 games is better than average. I don't know how many of those were empty nets, but regardless, that's pretty freaking solid. Although they were only able to muster up 8 on 166 shots. Tough shooting percentage for a team that has one of the best zone times I've ever seen in the last 2 playoff series. In the regular season, they had an above average goals for, so that was interesting. Do you think this team is missing a key goal scorer or finisher, or do you chalk this up to you ran into 2 goaltenders? Or is that just how hockey goes? Sometimes you have offense and sometimes it runs out. Alex.
Okay, so 2 things first. Fleury has won 3 cups with the Penguins.
You're right, he has.
2, I'm obviously a fucking idiot because I picked the Knights to win in 5 during our last podcast. So that went completely wrong for me. So shout out to me for being an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot. I mean, they outplayed them big time. I mean, I'm sorry. They did.
But to answer your actual question, in that first season where Vegas just kind of stormed the West, William Karlsson was decided to just be like, just kidding, I'm going to be a top goal scorer in the league. And I feel like, I know I don't pay attention to the Knights. They're not my team. I hate them. So I'm not upset that they're not in it. But he has seemed to sort of disappear. And, coming back to this, generally the Knights are a team of players that other teams didn't want. They pretty much just said, hey, here you go. Yeah, they got big names like Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty. But yet to bring it all back together, yes, they need one big goal or, they're a team of scrappy players that together can be great. But sometimes you need that Sid Crosby, that Connor McDavid, that Alexander Ovechkin, that's Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov. Sometimes you need those guys. And I don't think the Knights have a player like that. And sometimes you do. In the playoffs, you need one guy to just step up and carry your team.
Yeah. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't think the Knights really needed that going into this series. I thought they were playing well with the mix that they had. Yeah, they didn't have that, high-end, top 5 NHL goal scorer. But you see plenty of teams that can win without that. So I think it was just one of these series where their offense just kind of went cold. But obviously I think with today's NHL, having a lot of talent and skill and speed on the offensive side is really, really important. I think they still have that. I still think they're pretty deep on offense. But, yeah, maybe they need just that one guy that's going to just light up the scoreboard for them most nights. No pun intended.
Yeah. I agree. I think they need to. I think they need to figure out their scoring, whether it's a new player or whether it's just learning to use their own guys to score. Yeah. Because I think their personnel is extremely good. They're very deep. They have some amazing players on there. Hey, I mean, I'm looking at you, James. You gave up Shea Theodore in the expansion draft, and he's turning out to be the next Rob Niedermeyer. Not a big deal. I'll just leave it there. Moving on to Dallas. This question is for James and Alex. Dallas will either play Tampa Bay or the Islanders in the Stanley Cup Final. We presumably it's going to be Tampa Bay. But this will be the first time where we see players not having to travel over multiple time zones to play each other in the finals, right? And we could see the quote-unquote best hockey we have seen ever due to the fact that they're going to be rested more. They don't have to deal with that travel, and they won't have distractions. And the playoffs have always generally been this war of attrition. Usually the final two teams are so dead, they're so dogged, and it can kind of turn into just kind of a battle as opposed to really, really good hockey, meaning, sexy hockey, good passing, that kind of stuff. Do you think we will see some of the best hockey due to the fact that you're adding this final prize, the Stanley Cup, into the bubble, that they're not having to deal with the same type of attrition that they're accustomed to seeing? Like, are we going to see better hockey here, Alex?
I think so. Yeah. I'm expecting these guys to, whichever team comes out of the East to face Dallas, I expect both of those teams to just start flying out of the gates.
Yeah.
I typically, during a regular non-pandemic season, will go with the team that comes in last. I like to go with teams that are right in that hot hand, boom, they won a game 6, boom, they won a game 7, they're moving on to the next round. They're feeling it. Who knows this year? I'm expecting some great hockey. The travel, especially for, if it's, say, like Dallas and Tampa, or Dallas and New York, really, that's kind of the same difference travel-wise. But now they don't have to travel. Yeah, I think the travel just saves their legs, saves their energy. It'll be really interesting to see, but I do think we see some really great hockey in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, what about you, James?
I think a little yes, a little no. A little yes because, like you guys mentioned, the rest and everything. But no, because of the Stars' style of play. They're a pretty physical hockey team all the way through. And they're kind of like the Islanders, but not as much. We saw that in all the games that the Stars beat the Knights in. They're the more physical team. They're not afraid to give up their body. They go in for hits. They go in for hard hits. They're not afraid to throw punches. They put their body on the line all the time to block shots. They don't care. They want to win. And because I think they play that style of hockey, it's not as sexy as the perfect passes, just zigzagging across east, west, north, south, and then slaps from blue line. That's not what's going to work right now. That's their style of play. And while I think the rest is going to play a huge part of that, it's the style, the style and the characteristics of the players and the coach also play a part in that too.
I see that. I think it's going to be interesting. I think I actually agree with you guys both in some cases. I'm just excited to see what it's like to see rested hockey players in the Stanley Cup final. Final point in question for Eric and Tyler. Dallas will be the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 2000, which was 1 year after they won the Stanley Cup and what could otherwise be described as the most controversial Stanley Cup final win in NHL history. This team has been counted out multiple times by even many of us on this podcast, but they prove us wrong time and time again. Tyler, you mentioned that. The craziest thing about all that is the fact that Tyler Seguin is 9th in points on his team, 8 in 19 games, 8 goals and 8 assists in 19 games and only 2 goals. Miro Heiskanen has been a beast, 22 points, 20 games, 5 goals. Jamie Benn has also been fantastic. Does this team have the ability to beat someone like Tampa, who we know can score, who's fast, who can play with an edge, and now all of a sudden, like they can start to put up hits as we see? If Seguin continues to remain off the score sheet, how confident are you in that the bottom 6 in Dallas can beat the bottom 6 in Tampa? Eric?
Still pretty confident in them. They took out a team that I thought was the most dangerous team in the Western Conference. That's exactly what you just described as the Lightning. They could hit, they could score, they could skate. And we've been counting them out all year. Sagan's like that kid on the fucking group project that always dicked around and never did anything, but they get an A on it. That's like how he's been throughout the whole bubble. So he still has time to turn it on. He's going to need to fucking turn it on, though, if they want to win. We said that for this series, and somehow he didn't. And Qdobin stood on his head, as we always say, saved their lives. So I still think they can get past Tampa with or without Seguin.
What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Seguin, him performing at his top level isn't important for this Dallas Star team. I think they got a lot of other options. But yeah, on paper, to me, it's like, yeah, Lightningers should win this series. But I've said that with every other. I haven't picked the Stars to win once. So who fucking knows? The Stars team just keeps coming out and they keep winning, which is impressive. And as a sports fan, I love to see it. You know, my team's not in the playoffs right now, but I love those teams that are the underdogs and can be the underdogs all the way through. That'd be a great story. So, yeah, I still think the Lightning are the better hockey team here. But like I said, with Stars, with their mojo, the way they're playing right now, they might be the best team left in this tournament.
We'll have to see. I watching this Tampa Bay team and watching what they can do, looking at their team. I know I said this about Vegas. I just don't see the Tampa Bay Lightning losing that series against the Dallas Stars. But I better not be too ingrained in that because they've proven.
Because the Islanders will win in Game 7. That's why.
Fair enough. I will say if in my opinion, if the Islanders end up winning, I think that Dallas will win the series for sure. I think that Dallas is the better team in that type of environment. I think they have better firepower, and I think that they'll be able to beat the Islanders in that sense. But that's all we got for hockey. Sorry it was long, but it's starting to end up, so you're not going to hear much from hockey in about 2 weeks.
That's so sad.
Sad.
Oh, I know.